You walk into the meeting. You're prepared. You're confident. You think you know what's happening. But 30 minutes later, you walk out confused. Somehow, they got what they wanted. Somehow, you agreed to things you didn't intend to agree to. Somehow, you're now responsible for outcomes you never volunteered for. And the worst part, you can't even pinpoint when it happened. That conversation at work where your idea became someone else's victory. That family gathering where you ended up apologizing for boundaries you didn't violate. That friendship where you're always giving and they're always taking, but it's framed as balance. You're not imagining it. You're not paranoid. You're just uninitiated. Because while you've been playing checkers with good intentions and honest communication, they've been playing chess with strategies you didn't know existed. There's a game happening in every human interaction. A subtle, ancient, unspoken game of power, influence, and control. And the most dangerous part? Everyone knows the rules, except you. Machiavelli understood this. So did Sun Tzu. They didn't write their works to celebrate warfare. They wrote them because warfare was already happening. The battle for power, for control, for psychological dominance. It happens in boardrooms disguised as collaboration. It happens in relationships disguised as love. It happens in families disguised as care. Sun Tzu wrote, "All warfare is based on deception." But here's what he didn't need to say. All human interaction is based on strategy, even the ones that seem innocent, especially those. Today, you get initiated. These are the 7 unspoken rules of psychological warfare. The rules your opponents have been using against you your entire life. The rules that will transform you from an unconscious player into a conscious strategist. This isn't about becoming manipulative. It's about becoming unmoved. Here's the first rule they know that you don't. There is no off switch. You think there are moments of genuine neutrality, casual conversations, friendly interactions, moments where nobody's trying to win anything. You're wrong. Machiavelli wrote, "Men are so simple and so ready to obey present necessities that one who deceives will always find those who allow themselves to be deceived." Translation: people are always positioning, always calculating, always playing, even when they smile, even when they help, especially when they help. Watch what happens when you share good news. Notice who celebrates and who subtly diminishes. That's great, but have you thought about? They're not being helpful. They're repositioning themselves above your victory. Notice who offers unsolicited advice. They're not concerned. They're establishing expertise, creating a debt, positioning themselves as superior. Every "let me help you with that" is a move on the board. The initiated know this. They're never off guard. They're never fully relaxed in public space, not because they're paranoid, because they're aware. You walk into a room thinking it's just a room. They walk in scanning for power dynamics, status hierarchies, and strategic alliances. While you're being authentic, they're being tactical. The first rule is simple but devastating. Stop believing in neutral interactions. Every conversation is negotiation. Every silence is communication. Every gesture is positioning. Sun Tzu called this knowing the terrain. You must see the battlefield even when others insist it's a playground. Your emotions are not the problem. Your display of emotions is the weapon they use against you. Machiavelli was clear. Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few experience what you really are. The game isn't about not having vulnerability. It's about not advertising vulnerability. You get angry. They get data. You show hurt. They get leverage. You display need. they get control. Watch how this plays out. You're in a discussion. Someone says something that stings. You react. Your face changes. Your voice shifts. You defend. In that moment, you've handed them the map to your psychology. Now they know what hurts you, what threatens you, what makes you lose center. And the initiated, they store this information. They file it. They use it later when stakes are higher. Sun Tzu wrote, "Appear weak when you are strong, and strong when you are weak." But here's the deeper truth. The master never appears as they truly are. You think honesty is strength. They know ambiguity is armor. You share your struggles thinking it builds connection. They share strategically, revealing only what serves their position. Your authentic disclosure becomes their intelligence gathering. This doesn't mean become robotic. It means develop a buffer between feeling and displaying. You can feel everything without showing everything. The second rule: your internal experience is yours. Your external expression is strategy. Learn the difference. This is the rule that destroys romantics, idealists, and earnest believers. In every relationship, professional or personal, there is an unspoken negotiation of investment. And the person who needs the outcome less always has more power, Machiavelli observed. The one who depends on another person's pleasure for his welfare is never free. Dependence is leverage. Need is vulnerability. Caring too much is a tactical error. You care about the job, they know you'll accept less money. You care about the friendship, they know you'll tolerate poor treatment. You care about the relationship, they know you'll compromise your boundaries. The initiated understand this mathematically. They calibrate their visible investment to always be slightly less than yours. Not because they don't care, because appearing to care less is strategic. Watch how they do it. They respond slower to your messages. They're always slightly less available than you are. They create the impression they have abundant options. This isn't playing games. This is understanding that perceived scarcity creates value, and perceived abundance creates power. Sun Tzu wrote, "In all fighting, the direct method may be used for joining battle, but indirect methods will be needed to secure victory. The indirect method is making them believe you need them less than they need you, even when the opposite is true." The third rule: whoever reveals their true level of investment first loses negotiating power. Guard your caring like you guard your life. The initiated are fascinated by you. They ask questions. They seem genuinely interested. They remember details. They make you feel seen. And while you're basking in the warmth of being understood, they're gathering intelligence. Machiavelli wrote, "The first method for estimating the intelligence of a ruler is to look at the men he has around him. But here's the sharper version. The intelligent estimate you by what you reveal. Every answer you give is a map. Every story you share is reconnaissance. Every vulnerability you disclose is an inventory of your weaknesses. Watch how the master plays this. They ask you about your weekend, your project, your relationships. You answer fully because it feels like connection. They nod. They validate. They share nothing in return. Or if they do, it's curated, strategic, revealing nothing exploitable. Sun Tzu taught, "Know the enemy and know yourself. In 100 battles, you will never be in peril." But he left out the critical part. Make sure the enemy never knows you. The conversation feels balanced. It isn't. You left transparent. They left mysterious. You revealed your fears. They revealed their facade. You gave them ammunition. They gave you a performance. This is why the initiated are always slightly opaque. Not rude, not cold, just unreadable. They deflect personal questions with charm. They redirect conversations. They volunteer nothing that could be weaponized. The fourth rule: in psychological warfare, the one with more information about the other person holds the advantage. Stop spilling your psychology for the price of perceived connection. Here's where strategy becomes art. The amateur wants to be seen as powerful. The master wants the opponent to feel safe. Machiavelli advised, "A wise ruler ought never to keep faith, when by doing so it would be against his interests. But deeper still, never reveal your full capacity. Never let them know how much you truly see." Sun Tzu called this the principle of deception. All warfare is based on deception. Hence, when able to attack, we must seem unable. You're in a negotiation. They're pushing for terms that favor them. The amateur fights every point, reveals their limits, shows their full hand. The initiated, they concede small points. They appear flexible, reasonable, almost defeated. And then, when the opponent is relaxed, certain of victory, the real move happens. Watch how this works in office politics. Someone's trying to take credit for your idea. The amateur confronts immediately, makes a scene, reveals how threatened they feel. The initiated, they smile, they nod. They let the person believe they've succeeded, and then, in the next meeting with someone who matters, they casually reveal the truth, not defensively, not desperately, just factually. The opponent never sees it coming because they thought the battle was over. This is the psychology Machiavelli understood. People lower their guard around those they believe they've defeated. They stop being strategic around those they perceive as weak, and that's when the master makes their move. The fifth rule: your opponent's false sense of security is your greatest tactical advantage. Let them think they're winning until the moment you need them to lose. This is the rule that costs the most casualties. In psychological warfare, the person who triggers your emotions controls your actions. Machiavelli wrote, "Men ought either to be well treated or crushed, because they can avenge themselves of lighter injuries. But here's the hidden wisdom. The easiest way to crush someone is to make them crush themselves through their own emotional reactivity." Watch how this works. Someone insults you. You react with anger. Now you're the problem, the aggressive one, the unreasonable one. They've turned your legitimate grievance into evidence of your character flaw. Someone betrays you. You react with hurt. You try to make them understand the pain they caused. They use your pain as proof that you're too sensitive, too emotional, too much. Someone provokes you in public. You defend yourself. They remain calm, reasonable. Now you're the one who looks unstable. They've weaponized your emotions against your reputation. Sun Tzu taught, "He will win who knows when to fight and when not to fight." And the initiated know, the fight they want you to have is the one you should refuse. Because every emotional reaction is a confession. Anger confesses, "You got to me." Defensiveness confesses, "You found the truth." Explanation confesses, "I need your approval." The master maintains what Machiavelli called virtue, not virtue in the moral sense, but psychological fortitude, the ability to remain strategically composed regardless of internal experience. You can feel everything. You can show nothing. They can provoke endlessly. You can remain still. This isn't suppression, it's strategy. Because in psychological warfare, the person who remains emotionally neutral while the other loses control has won before a word is spoken. The sixth rule: your emotional reactivity is their fastest route to control. Master your internal response, and they lose their most effective weapon. Now we arrive at the final rule, the one they don't want you to learn, because this is the rule that ends their power. Machiavelli and Sun Tzu spent their lives studying power. But here's what both understood that their readers often miss. The ultimate mastery isn't winning the game, it's choosing which games to play. Sun Tzu wrote, "The supreme art of war is to subdue the enemy without fighting." But here's the deeper teaching. The supreme art of life is to win without entering wars that don't serve you. Because here's the truth they don't tell you. Most of the games you're playing, you never agreed to play. Most of the battles you're fighting, you never needed to fight. Most of the competitions you're losing, you never had to enter. Someone wants to compete with you. You don't have to compete back. Someone wants to manipulate you. You don't have to engage. Someone wants to play power games. You don't have to be a player. The initiated understand something the merely strategic never grasp. True power is discretion. The ability to see the game, understand the game, and walk away from the game without needing to prove you could have won. Machiavelli wrote for princes who couldn't avoid the political arena. Sun Tzu wrote for generals who couldn't refuse the battlefield. But you're not a prince or a general. You're a sovereign being who can choose. This is the rule that transcends all others. Once you know the rules, once you see the patterns, once you understand the game completely, you earn the right to stop playing, not out of weakness, not out of ignorance, out of choice. You see the manipulation attempt and you simply don't engage. You recognize the power play and you remain unmoved. You notice the emotional bait and you let it pass. Not because you can't play, because you're playing a different game now. The game where you keep your energy for what matters, where you choose your battles not by ego but by purpose, where you win not by defeating opponents but by transcending the need for the victory they're offering. The seventh rule: the game only has power over you until you realize you can choose not to play. And that choice, that conscious refusal to engage, is the ultimate expression of power. You came here thinking you'd learn to fight better. You're leaving knowing you don't have to fight at all. These 7 rules aren't about becoming a manipulator. They're about becoming unmovable. They're about developing the clarity to see the game, the wisdom to know when to play, and the sovereignty to walk away when the game serves no one. Tomorrow, watch. Watch how people try to make you care more than them. Watch how they fish for information while revealing nothing. Watch how they attempt to trigger emotions to control outcomes. Watch how they play the game without ever acknowledging there is one. And then choose. Choose to remain clear when they want you confused. Choose to remain still when they want you reactive. Choose to remain sovereign when they want you dependent, because now you know the rules. And knowing the rules means you're no longer an unconscious player, you're a conscious strategist. Or better yet, you're someone who has transcended the need to strategize at all. Machiavelli wrote, "It is better to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both." But here's the revision. It is better to be free than to win, if you cannot have both. And freedom begins the moment you see the game clearly enough to choose whether you want to play. Write in the comments, "I see the game. Let's find out who's ready to stop being played."